Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the latest edition of Fran Coach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of Fran Coach and your podcast host. Today, I am super excited because we have a guest that really can only be described as franchise royalty. This is somebody who is not only just a multi-unit franchise owner, but she's a multi-brand franchise owner. If that's not big enough, she's a director of marketing for one of the premier franchise marketing firms. She also hosts an amazing podcast. And if I'm being honest, it is my second favorite podcast out there. You guys can guess what my favorite one is. But also is in charge of a groundbreaking new series that features some of the absolute top rock stars in the industry of franchising. If that's not enough, still, she started her own nonprofit, and somewhere mixed in there, there's a hubby and some kiddos running around, right? So, yet with all of that, here she is. She is so important. I'm skipping the Fran Coach intro. We are jumping right into the one, the only Ms. Madeleine Zook. Madeleine, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. I know I've been listening to your podcast for a while, and when you reached out to be on, I was like, oh, shoot. We haven't done this yet. We really got to do this. So I'm excited to be here.
We do. And at some point, can you and I play a game of horse? And because, big baller with your basketballs back there.
We can, but I will not go easy on you. Maybe we'll play franchise. It has a few more letters in it.
Yeah, it'll take me a little bit longer to win, but it'll be fine. So it is awesome to have you on, and we've got a bunch to talk about from obviously your background. We definitely want to talk about marketing because, again, when you're owning a franchise, the hyperventilation moment is like, I need customers, I need clients. How do we find them, right? And you are an absolute expert in that. But first off, franchising is about people. So I always like to get to know the folks on the show. Like, how did you get into this crazy thing that is franchising? Give us the scoop.
Yeah. So like almost everyone in franchising, I kind of fell into it. So after I played professional basketball, I decided instead of going overseas and trying to make that work, I should make some money. So I started out as an executive assistant. I had a youth basketball coaching company on the side with a partner. And one day I got a LinkedIn message saying, hey, I know Dave, who was my partner in the basketball facility. And he was like, we're Made Pro and we're looking for someone who has a marketing background. And, I'm really big on relationships and referrals. So I'd love to talk. And Tim, my first response was, I don't want to be a maid. Like, what are you talking about? What is this? And so finally I was like, oh, okay, this seemed a little bit interesting. I didn't know what franchising was. Sure enough, go in, interview, get the job. And immediately Amazon, books, Franchising 101. What's a franchise? How to market a franchise. I was like, I'm in over my head. And then, fast forward about a decade later, we grew it to, I think when I left, it was like maybe 10 or 11 brands. It's now Threshold Brands. Private equities acquired them. I met my husband, who was a franchisee at the time. So we now own 3 brands under them, all multi-unit, and then another brand outside of them with a different franchisor. And I have now started a franchise corporate recruiting firm. We've got, the podcast. I work for a digital marketing supplier. So it's been really great to kind of see all different aspects of franchising and see, the pain points of each. And my goal here now is people ask kind of, well, what do you do daily? And I was like, honestly, I'm just trying to leave franchising better than I came in, because there's a good chance that between the 4 brands and the 3 kids, one of them is going to be in franchising.
Exactly. So, and the fact that you and your husband met in franchising, let's be honest, there's no way that type of relationship could possibly work. Right. So,
listen, it's so funny. And I said this on Eric Van Horn's podcast the other day. I was like, everyone asks oh, how did you and your husband meet? And we had known each other, in the system, whatever. And I said, well, it all started with a franchise convention, a hot tub, and Nicolas Cage. And you think that I'm joking, and I'm literally not. We were in Puerto Rico at a franchise convention. A bunch of us were in the hot tub, everyone starts coming over and saying, oh, in that restaurant across the way over there, Nicolas Cage is there. I guess he's here shooting a movie. And now everyone else is normal adults and they're like, oh, that's cool, like he's just having a dinner. That's awesome that we got to see him. Not me. I lean over to Jesse. I was like, can I have your tequila? I take a couple shots, get out soaking wet of the hot tub, walk across the street into the restaurant, take a photo with Nicolas Cage. I don't know why he said yes. And then came back and Jesse was like, huh, that was kind of cool. And, it's history ever since.
That is, and the good thing is you guys will probably tell the same story. Whereas my wife and we met in franchising, we have slightly different versions of how it went down. Mine is the accurate version. Hers is some sort of science fiction thing. So, but yeah, exactly. And there's no way in heck she's going to listen to this. So, well, she might because you're on, but any other one, I'm pretty sure she's going to ignore. So, talk a little bit about, like, you just kind of like glossed over not just a franchise owner, but multiple units and now multiple brands, right? And so I think most people that we work with and folks that are listening, we kind of get the fact that you can grow multiple units of that, right? So, and again, most people's mind looking into franchising at the beginning thinks retail, multiple locations, but you've got multiple territories of this. What they don't realize is that you can kind of stack those additional brands on top. So talk a little bit about kind of that transition for you guys, the advantages, things that went well, and then a couple of things you're like, "Ooh, that was a little more challenging than maybe we thought."
So I am known for being like no filter. So I'll just kind of give you the real feel for it.
You've already busted out the first F-bomb on the Franchising 101 podcast. So good work.
Listen, Scott Abbott was like, "You're the only one that's ever sworn on my podcast." And I was like, I feel honored. But, so our story is, as I worked at the corporate Made Pro, he had bought that previous to us knowing each other and grew it to one of the top 10 systems. So he had that under wraps. We're both very entrepreneur. And it was doing very well. So that's kind of like our golden child. During that time when I was with Made Pro and, had met Jesse, who's my husband, we decided to build at Threshold a pest control company from the ground up. We were going to go mosquito and tick. So the industry was there. And he was one of the early adopters of the Made Pro franchises, which was now the sister franchise, that said, I'll raise my hand. I'll try this out. Obviously I believed in the brand. I believe in what we're doing. And also he was like, I've grown this Made Pro system pretty large. I want to try something else. That has proven to be very difficult because when you are one of the early adopters at an emerging brand, the performas and all of the benchmarks you expect to hit and you research and see are minus times 5. So it was exponentially more difficult to figure out, and not in terms of operations, but in terms of growth, because now franchise development, they're not growing very fast because they're now competing with a very highly competitive space. And also it's not every day that a franchise candidate wants to raise their hand and be one of the first 5, 10 in a system. Right. So we're competing against that. So that brand, which is now called Patio Patrol, took about 4 or 5 seasons to break even. So that's a long time to break even. Now, thankfully, we had Made Pro that was continuing to grow, and that kind of helped us fund this other franchise venture. But what we had hoped would break even in season 1 or 2 simply did not. And also, getting that split support from a franchisor was difficult as well. Now, I was on the corporate side, so it kind of bridged that gap a little bit. But that was the realistic part of it. And then our third brand, which was Men in Kilts. And also, I should say, we knew we wanted to stay within home services, right? We weren't about to branch out to a QSR. So that ideally that they complemented one another. Right. Now we brought on Men in Kilts, which was the exterior cleaning. So we had interior cleaning, exterior cleaning, and basically cleaning up your pest control. The problem with Men in Kilts was that, we acquired them as a franchisor. And so they were already pre-built out, you know, performas and KPIs. But the problem was this was all majority in Canada. And so for the US, it was completely different. So we have found that what we should have expected from the business was nothing like what we saw during the candidate process. Now, in the candidate process, we didn't do a ton of due diligence. We were like, we know this franchisor, you know, my best friend at the time was leading the brand. But I think, you know, we went in with rose-colored glasses from the franchisor too, because we had all of these Canadian statistics. And then when we transferred it over to the US and layered on COVID, it really took a hit. So that business is still not at break even, and we're about 3 or 4 seasons in, which, you know, is tough. And then I met Leo Goldberg over at Home Base Franchise Group, and we had now bought a very large territory, almost all of Pennsylvania, for Closetivity, because we were like, all right, well, now we're cleaning up everything. Let's organize. So let's do the custom built-ins. And I was like, this is another emerging brand, but I see the vision, I see the brand. I know we have this huge network of clients already, like, and this is going to be easier break even because each of the charges are of a larger price point, right?
Right.
Now, I underestimated the support we did need from the franchisor, because they have very, very minimal in terms of marketing, to the point where you could type in Closetivity and that's not even going to come up. So to have almost a negative SEO has really taken a toll on us, to the point where a lead, Tim, not even a closing, a lead is $700. That is insane, especially when our, you know, average ticket is like anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So to get a lead at 700, we're dropping in thousands of dollars every month, and to the point where it's almost not sustainable because of consumer trends, inflation, no real SEO juice or any sort of value from the franchise brand standpoint. And on top of that, I think that something that people don't talk about is the delta between having multiple brands. So sure, you can scale your single brand to multi-units, and you know, you don't really need a lot of extra capital or time. You get the system. But when you start bringing on new brands, every single one of those brands says you have to be 100% invested. You have to go out and do guerrilla marketing. You have to, you know, X, Y, Z. And no franchisor takes into account that if when you get that ideal franchisee, which I would assume my husband and I are, we're overcapitalized. We know the system, we'll follow the system, and we want to grow. It's kind of like having kids. So when I have my second kid and my third kid, I can't just ignore the other ones and give them 100% of my attention. So as you start to dilute the amount of time and attention you have, even if you're pumping money into it, there's not enough time to be the mayor of your community for each of those brands.
Right.
And the franchisor hasn't built into their initial investment plan what happens when our owners don't have that time. So we didn't budget to have to, you know, bring on someone full-time to go do all of that guerrilla marketing. So now we're just sitting here saying, okay, well, now break even is even slower, because there is that delta between what happens when our owners don't have the time, and not because they are not a good franchisee, but because they've got other franchises that are requiring the same thing. So that's kind of what we're up against now. And while franchising is very lucrative and gives us a lifestyle that is very comfortable and stuff, we're at the point now where the brands 2, 3, and 4 were not as turnkey. They took exponentially longer to hit break even, and we're a little bit tired of being in investment mode. And I just don't know if there's a franchise out there or brands out there that don't necessarily require that. I think they all require that. And I think if you're a multi-unit looking to be a multi-brand, your investment requirements just need to be higher, because in order to make it work as quick as they'd want, that's essentially what you need.
Yeah, I think you almost have to treat it like you're semi-absentee to the
Yeah.
point where I know I'm going to be involved, but I need to get somebody boots on the ground for this one, for this one, for this one. Does that increase the investment? Yes, but my guess is it's going to increase or kind of speed that ramp up time, because right now your time is torn between the different brands. Plus, for you guys, just all the other things you have going on as well.
And I think it's something to be said too, is like we have managers for all of these brands. We're not trying to own or operate all of them. But again, yeah, it's that other person that's going to push the community brand, which your operations manager or your, employment manager isn't necessarily going to do. We also assumed that with our thousands of customer base, that cross branding and cross marketing would be more of a hit than it is. It's literally like 1%, which is crazy because all of these people need these services. So we're, actively working on other campaigns, other ways to get our current customers to buy into our other brands and other services. But as obvious and easy as it may sound, it is one of the hardest marketing polls.
Which kind of leads us into the kind of the whole marketing side of things. Whether it's your franchise, you've been with franchisors, you're like anything marketing is stuff you have been and are currently involved in, and really one of the leaders in the franchising industry with this. So as you are looking at what somebody's thinking about, okay, I'm going to start a franchise. Yes, they're going to have all these things in place for us, but talk through maybe some key elements. And again, you've seen this from both sides, being a franchisor, really three sides: the supplier, the franchisee. What are some of those key elements that you're like, you've got to make sure you have this, and this really in place and understand from a marketing standpoint? Hey everyone, I wanted to pause the show for just a moment to spotlight one of our premier franchise partners, Bumble Roofing. An exciting emerging franchise opportunity under the Empower Brands umbrella. Bumble Roofing is a rapidly growing name in the $22 billion roofing industry. Bumble is renowned for its commitment to craftsmanship and to customer satisfaction. Perhaps Bumble's biggest differentiator is the fact that they are revolutionizing the sales process in an industry that was long overdue for it. The result is an amazing customer experience and a steady flow of referrals because of it. Serving both residential and commercial clients makes Bumble stand out as a versatile and rewarding franchise opportunity. But wait, no roofing experience? No worries. You don't need roofing experience to get your hands on a Bumble franchise. You just need the desire to take control of your life, follow the proven system provided, and you can build your own business through the power of franchising. If you'd like to learn more about Bumble Roofing to see if it might be your perfect match, reach out to the Fran Coach team today so we can help you create your better tomorrow. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a quick break from our podcast to tell you about our amazing friends at Entrepreneur. If you're looking to become a franchisee or simply learn more about business ownership, and guys, let's be honest, you're listening to the Franchising 101 podcast, so we know you have some interest in this. And I really encourage you to go to entrepreneur.com to check out all of their great content and resources. Seriously, Entrepreneur has everything, all the way from a bookstore to the best podcasts, webinars, and videos, plus information on upcoming events and the latest articles that seriously, they cover all aspects of franchising and business ownership. If you're having trouble deciding which franchise is right for you, start with Entrepreneur's renowned Franchise 500 ranking, which highlights the best franchises of 2022. For 45 years and counting now, Entrepreneur has been and continues to be the most widely recognized and respected authority in the franchise market. Digital and print subscriptions are available, so you never miss out on anything. So seriously, what are you waiting for? Go to entrepreneur.com right now and learn more.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that, one, I always ask, what is your short play and long play? And it's very easy to find out if their focus is on growing AUV, which is your average unit revenue, which means they're focused on growing your business and your fellow franchisees' business. Obviously, that makes more royalties. However, franchise development, where they're bringing in new locations, cut the big checks. So there's definitely a checks and balance there when it comes to that. So I usually ask the franchisor, like, what is your 5-year, your 10-year goal? And if that is to be bought out by private equity, great. But I want to know going into that what I can expect on the corporate level moving forward. Once that's settled, then you want to say, okay, let me see your marketing plans. If they don't have one, red flag, because you can't expect to, make that up on your own or be a marketing, savant for your own location. You need to have that in place. And then I want to say, okay, show me your growth numbers over the last 3 years, because this is going to show you if the marketing plans even fucking work. Because it's very easy to say, here's how much you spend and here's where you spend it. It's also very easy for that to not work. So then I want to see, that growth plan. So that's super important. If they're working with suppliers, you want to ask, are you guys getting a kickback from that? Are you guys getting a referral fee? Are we mandated to use these suppliers? A red flag is always if you're mandated to use a supplier and they only give you one option. I think having suppliers is great, because marketing is such a beast of a department that, when you're trying to run multiple campaigns for hundreds of locations, you can't expect the home office to do that well for every single franchisee. So, bringing on a supplier that can scale is definitely important. But at the same time, you want to make sure that they're making those partnerships for the right reasons. You want to make sure they're not making it because they're going to make a bigger buck on the back end. You want to make sure that they don't actually, maybe they own they also own the marketing company, and that might be fine. But if that's your only option and they give you no other option, that if it doesn't do well, because sometimes some suppliers do better in regions than others do, you always want to kind of have a bake off and have options there. And then 3, you want to make sure that the franchisor is dedicated to really building that national brand. With our closet brand, I don't think that's a priority, and that is okay to some extent. But if it's to the point where you're typing in your brand name and it's not coming up on Google, like, that's going to hurt you locally and nationally. So you want to kind of see, hey, what are your plans for this marketing fund that we're paying our 1% to 2% into, just so we can know that there are things moving in the background aside from just our local spend.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those things as you get through that vetting process of looking at a franchise, and you get to talk to existing owners. And yes, a lot of our clients, like, everybody's going to get caught up in the money stuff. They're like, okay, sure, we need to understand that. I'm like, what's a day in a life? And then, like, what are you doing to get leads? Right. Hey, franchise, oh yeah, they say they do this, but no, it's terrible. Or it's like, oh yeah, no, everything they lay out works really well. And I get, these 2 are my best lead gen strategies. And you'll talk to another owner, like, I don't like those. I like these, but you at least have that confidence that mm-hmm. you can see it work. And then, I know you see this too. It's like, just don't be cheap on it, right? It's mm-hmm. like, so I'll spend more money when I start getting customers. And I've literally heard people say that, and I want to come through the phone and, like, it's probably not acceptable to smack the crap out of them, but it's kind of what you want, to do. I'm like, did you hear yourself say that? I'm going to spend money on marketing when I get customers, right? And so, but I think, and you've touched on this too, is understanding what those KPIs are for. Mm-hmm. On average, if I spend this here, I should get this many leads. From that, mm-hmm. I should get this many. And, like, they're really, even emerging franchises should, for the most part, have some aspect, some idea what those ratios are going to be. So you kind of know, like, okay, I'm spending money. Well, I got a lead, they didn't buy. The marketing sucks. That was one lead, right? How many do we need to get that sale, to get that customer? So, yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it with your businesses, the difference on, is it that repeat recurring thing, like a cleaning or a pest, versus something that's project based, like we're coming in and we're doing a $10,000 project in your house. Right. You got to kind of factor those things in as well. So, very cool. I want to make sure we talk about this super cool thing that is rolling out right now called franchise masters. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit about, like, first, what the heck is it? And then how did you even come up with this? Because I know there are a lot of people in this industry kicking themselves for, well, we should have done that. Yeah, whatever. You didn't think of it. You didn't have the ability to knock it out like you have. So talk to everybody about this.
So I think that there are brilliant minds in franchising. And what makes them different from corporate is that everyone, and I say everyone because usually the ones that don't have this do not last or will not, do not make it to the franchise masters level. But they truly care about each one of their franchisees' success. And when you are a candidate or a corporate executive, or even a franchisee to some extent, you don't get that feel from the C-suite all the time because you don't always have access to them. Even if you're looking to be a mentor, these people are incredibly busy. They don't have 40 hours a week to give to 40 people in a room to chat with them for an hour about their expertise. And as much as they want to, there's just not enough time. So, it's funny because I never take baths, and I have 3 kids. One is a baby, and my husband was like, go take a bath for once in your life and like try to relax. Tim, I was in that bath for maybe 4 minutes. And then I was like, light bulb, jumped out, wrapped a towel around me, and immediately went and emailed Trevor over at Franchise Filming. And I said, I have an idea. My idea was, let's interview these people, these masters, these leaders that everyone looks up to, everyone admires, and get them to talk about their story and their, specific expertise, whether it's, leading an umbrella brand, fractional marketing, restaurateurs, whatever it may be. Give them the platform to talk, because now people can learn from them in a very professional setting. They're going to get a feel for not only why these people do what they do or how these people do what they do, but why. And just give people a chance in one platform to really just learn, because I think you and I both know that there's really no in between a typical Zoom like this, where no one really wants to sit and watch a Zoom, right? They'll listen, but no one really wants to sit and watch that. Or being in person at an event, and then it's just, every man for himself. I was like, so give me something in between that has a more professional feel, but is still very educational. And then people can go to one hub and just learn. So that was the idea. And Trevor said, I was like, I'm going to need you to film this, edit it, produce it at the quality of like a Netflix. And I'm going to need you to not charge me. And I'm going to need you to just believe in the vision. And thankfully, Trevor and his team said, Maddie, let's do this. And, my team over at NetSertive and my boss, Aaron, said, all right, like, we'll foot the bill for whatever you might need on the back end, but, go do your thing. And we've had about 26 amazing franchise executives, your wife being one of them, that is willing to share, lift each other up, and really voice not only what they've learned, but how they've learned it, and giving a pathway for others to follow in their footsteps, and also a glimpse for franchisees and candidates on, like, these are the people working for your brand. You're paying a franchise fee and you're paying royalties for, a logo essentially, but these are the people behind the logo, and they are tearing up when they're talking about franchisee success. And that's the people you want to go into business with. That's the reason why you're choosing franchising. And so I thought that was really important to bring that back to the forefront, especially since as franchising gets bigger, as private equity is starting to come in and be more popular, I want to make sure that we don't lose that heart and soul of franchising, which are the people.
Yeah, no, with 100%. And I think as we talk with our clients as we go through this process, like, everybody's on the surface level. Oh, I like this industry. I'm good at this. I promise you, it's going to be these intangible things that create that fit, right? And you've got to go to, that last step, going to a meet the team day, even if it's still virtual. But you need to be able to connect with them. Do these people know what the heck they're doing? Do I feel like they have my back, right? We had Peter Ross, who's the CEO of Senior Helpers, which is really the premier senior care franchise, but they have a new brand called Town Square, which is just a super cool adult daycare thing. And he was on a few weeks ago, and he's that, like, one of the really stuck out. He's like, the main job of a franchisor is to create happy franchisees. And if you look at their system, like, super successful, super happy because of that kind of that top-down approach. And so not everybody has that. And that's, I'll say okay, but it's not, right? but it is. And so I am super excited to, let's be honest, one of those episodes I might be more excited than the other. But it really is. And again, just getting that, like, the people behind it, the connectivity, these are long-term relationships as a franchise owner and a franchisor. Like, I always kind of joke, like, franchise owners are in business, like, but basically, like, after 5 years at the same rate that marriages are intact after 5 years, right? And so we want to make sure, like, we've met the crazy uncle Ed, or cousin Eddie, right? We've met everybody within the group. We're comfortable with them. We feel like we're in the right place. And so you bring in, like, kind of like these high level people in a very intimate setting to be able to talk about, yes, how smart and amazing they are, but who are they as individuals, and the why behind it is super cool. How can people find this?
So we are launching our first 8 episodes on Tuesday, November 21st. And then we plan to drop 1 to 2 episodes a week up until all 26 are released. And then we'll probably shoot a season 2. You can go to netsertive.com, and under resources, you'll find a page that says Franchise Masters. So you'll be able to sign up there. It's going to be all free content. And of course, it's going to be, all over LinkedIn and shared, probably too much, to the extent where you won't be able to not see it. But for now, it hasn't launched yet, so you can find it on netsertive.com.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure for all the people that follow the Fran Coach social channels, it might be there somewhere in there. I mean, it's probably going to be borderline required that one of them is shared, lest I get divorced.
If you want to eat at night, one of them will need to be on there.
I kind of like my wife, so and it would be sad for her because she's really overachieved with me. So I want to make sure that we can.
We were just talking about that. How much?
Not sure what I said was so funny there, but okay. So, thank you for coming on. I'm going to throw one last little question at you. You've been around the industry in all facets, right? And so most everybody that's kind of tuning in, all like 6 people that listen to these episodes, I'm bragging, there's really only 4, but there are people that are sitting there. I don't know why they haven't reached out to us yet. I'm going to address that in a minute, but they're wondering about franchise ownership. Is this a path for them? Should they do it? You've been around it on all sides. What would be maybe one little piece of advice that you would share to somebody sitting there listening to this right now? Is this for me?
So I will say that franchising, and I say this all the time, I'm like a broken record, franchising puts food on the table for my kids. And when you're going to go into franchising, you will be in the same situation. Make sure that whatever you're going into and whoever you're going into business with isn't going to risk that. And I mean that in a way of, like, you're not going to bring in someone you don't fully trust into your kids' lives. You should not bring in a franchise that you don't fully trust into your lives. Because if you go into it and say, it's not great, but I'll figure it out, franchising is going to weave into all aspects of your life, from your community relationships to your services, to your bank accounts, to your kids' lives. Do they take it over in the long run? Essentially, this is a 10, 20, 30-year contract. You need to be 100% in on what you're doing and who you're doing it with. Otherwise, I always say it's more difficult to get out of an FDD than it is to get out of a marriage. And that's not something that you want to sign lightly. So my recommendation is, you can never do too much research. You don't want to get into an analysis paralysis state, but go with your gut. And there are good franchisors and there are bad franchisors. And the more you ask, the more you research, the more that you'll be able to figure out what is the best fit for you and your family.
Yeah. No, I always say at the end of the process, like, and you said you trust your gut, you're going to know, right? Like you really, if you're making this agonizing decision, it's not the right thing, right? Like you don't start the maybe franchise, you don't marry the maybe person, right? Like, well, Danielle was allowed to, but nobody else was allowed to marry the maybe person, right? But it should be that crystal clear. Like, are you going to have some butterflies? Are going to be some nerves and all that? Yeah, absolutely. But you should be sitting there and again, kind of looking back to that people comment that you made. Like these are the right people. They've got my back on that. So
and you have an example of that. And I know that like there's a lot of franchisors that are, structured and large, but our franchisor spoke at our wedding. And that is not like an uncommon thing. So when we're talking about relationships, like those are the deep, meaningful relationships that you should have and can have with your franchisor, if that's something that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Madeleine, thank you so much for coming on. Can we at some point can we get you back? We'll just talk about more stuff franchising. We'll do a live podcast when a game of franchising comes on. We'll see if we can get a line at MGM, right, for some betting on this. So
for sure.
Cool. So you again, thank you so much, and I'm so excited for the Franchise Masters. Everybody, check that out for sure. And yeah, so thank you so much for coming on, and we hope to have you back again soon. Okay.
Absolutely, anytime. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.